911, what's your emergency?
It's my mate, Sam. He was fishing, and something in the water, something huge, it came out of nowhere.
Is he still visible? Do you see him?
No, he's gone. It pulled him under. There was nothing I could do.
Cahill's Crossing, Northern Territory. One of the most dangerous fishing spots in Australia, where the murky water hides ancient predators with prehistoric patience. On April 15th, 2023, Sam Mitchell, a 39-year-old local fisherman, launched his tinny just after dawn. It was a trip like dozens before, but this time, he wouldn't return. Sam had a reputation videos of him standing meters from a 5-meter saltwater crocodile he called Brutus had gone viral. To his followers, he was fearless. To experts, he was deluded. Because crocodiles don't build friendships, they wait. And on that quiet morning, Brutus stopped waiting. You're watching Animal Shock Stories. Subscribe if you're drawn to true cautionary tales from the edge of nature. And let us know in the comments, was this tragedy avoidable, or was it always coming? Sam Mitchell was no ordinary weekend fisherman. At 39, he had become something of a local legend along the banks of Cahill's Crossing, a notoriously dangerous stretch of water that cut through Australia's remote Northern Territory. But Sam didn't earn attention for his fishing skills. He became known for what he dared to do while fishing. Video after video on his social media showed him standing precariously close to the edge of the water, tossing scraps to a massive saltwater crocodile he had nicknamed Brutus. The reptile, estimated at over 5 meters long, was a fixture in the area, his broad snout and battle-scarred tail unmistakable. Sam called him a river king, but said they had an understanding. In interviews and live streams, he'd laugh off concerns, claiming Brutus respected him. "You give them space, you don't act like prey, they won't treat you like prey," he once said, grinning into the camera while Brutus hovered just meters away. Park rangers, however, saw it differently. According to official reports, Sam had been approached at least 3 times in the past 2 years and warned about illegal feeding and dangerously close encounters. One ranger, quoted anonymously, stated, "He believed he was special, but to the croc, he was just another warm body." The warnings fell on deaf ears. Each viral video brought more likes, more followers, more admiration. Sam's reputation as the croc whisperer fueled the myth of a man who had tamed the wild with nothing but confidence. In one widely shared clip, he squats on a rock at the river's edge, fish guts in hand, speaking to Brutus as if to a loyal dog. "Come on, mate." Just like before, the crocodile inches closer, then halts waiting, calculating. Viewers cheered in the comments. But wildlife experts saw something far more chilling. Crocodiles aren't pets, they're apex predators who can learn patterns and recognize opportunity, said Dr. Marla Jenkins, a behavioral ecologist. People forget they're capable of restraint until they're not. Sam, for all his bravado, had unknowingly trained Brutus to expect food, and more importantly, trained him to expect Sam's presence at the same time, in the same place, week after week. The line between familiarity and fatal miscalculation was thinning. Sam's friends occasionally expressed concern, but he'd always reassure them, "If you panic, you're prey. I'm calm." He knows that. And Brutus did know something. He knew Sam came alone, that he waded in knee-deep, that he lingered. And while Sam thought he had built trust, Brutus had simply been building certainty. The illusion of control was powerful until the moment instinct overruled performance. Warnings were not in short supply at Cahill's Crossing. For years, the Northern Territory's wildlife services had logged sightings, incidents, and narrow escapes in the area, many involving fishermen unaware or dismissive of just how stealthy crocodiles could be. One retired ranger, Doug Travers, who spent decades patrolling the banks, later told reporters, "We'd see crocs tailing boats, shadowing humans like shadows under the surface. They learn, they wait, and then one day, they don't." He wasn't speaking in theory. In the weeks leading up to Sam Mitchell's final fishing trip, something had clearly shifted. Sam's closest friend, Joel Harper, had joined him one morning when Brutus surged out of the water, jaws snapping less than a meter from the aluminum hull of their boat. Joel panicked. Sam laughed. "He's just showing off," he said, grinning. That same afternoon, he posted a new video with the caption, "Me and the big guy still mates." But under the surface, quite literally, Brutus was no longer playing by the same rules. Crocodiles are solitary, territorial, and as they age, they grow less tolerant, more assertive. Biologists reviewing Sam's footage later noted Brutus's body language, lower profile, tighter turns, less retreat. "Crocodiles don't bluff," said Dr. Alan Royston, a leading expert on reptilian behavior. "They calibrate." That lunge was a measurement, not a mistake. And Sam, oblivious to the recalibration, returned again and again. The footage shows a creeping escalation, Sam moving closer to the waterline, Brutus approaching faster, lingering longer. In the background of one image, a small yellow warning sign reads, "Crocodile area. Do not enter water." But in the foreground, Sam stands knee-deep, smiling into the lens, Brutus's snout barely a meter away. Locals had seen it before. In 2017, a man ignoring similar signs had been snatched and killed, his body never recovered. Sam knew the story. He even mentioned it once during a live Q&A. "That guy got too confident. I'm not like that." But the voiceover returns again and again to the same haunting phrase. He thought he was different. That belief that connection, familiarity, or respect somehow granted immunity would prove to be his fatal flaw. As Sam pushed boundaries for clicks and bravado, Brutus had matured from an opportunistic scavenger to a dominant apex predator defending his territory. The signs were there. Experts watching the footage after the fact saw the warnings in every frame. But for Sam, what he saw was validation. Each successful encounter reinforced the illusion of safety. Each laugh after a near miss deepened the belief that he understood Brutus. But nature doesn't give warnings in bold print. Its signals are quiet, slow, and final. And in the stillness of that river, a line was being crossed long before it broke. April 15, 2023, began like so many other mornings at Cahill's, crossing warm air hanging heavy over the water, river levels low after a long dry spell, and visibility reduced to little more than a muddy haze beneath the surface. Sam Mitchell and his longtime friend Joel Harper launched their aluminum tinny at 5:30 a.m., the aluminum hull groaning softly as it slid into the dark current. They'd done this countless times before. To them, it was routine. Brutus was spotted early. Joel remembers the ripple in the reeds, the unmistakable dome of a crocodile's head drifting silently just beyond the bend. "He's just saying hi," Sam had joked, waving his hand casually in the direction of the beast. They cast their lines and settled into the morning, the buzz of insects and distant bird calls their only company. But the mood shifted just past 7:10 a.m. Sam's line caught on a submerged log, or so he thought. Muttering, he stepped from the boat into knee-deep water, the kind of move he'd made dozens of times before. Joel turned, crouching to grab the tackle box. That's when it happened. A violent splash. A single scream, and then nothing. When Joel looked up, Sam was gone. It was like he vanished, he told investigators, his voice flat with shock. But crocodiles don't make people vanish. They strike with such speed, force, and finality that what they leave behind is only silence. Brutus had surged from the depths, his jaws clamping around Sam's torso with bone-crushing force before yanking him beneath the surface in one explosive, horrifying motion. Joel's trembling 911 call, recorded minutes later, would become the haunting audio that opened this story. "He's gone! It pulled him under! There was nothing I could do!" Search and rescue teams arrived within the hour. They found churned-up mud, a shredded piece of Sam's flannel shirt, and a 20-meter drag trail leading into deeper water. One ranger later described the scene. There was no thrashing, no fight. It was surgical, precise. He never had a chance. Despite boats, helicopters and drone sweeps, Sam's body would not be recovered that day. The silence that followed wasn't just the absence of life, it was the collapse of a myth. Sam had believed his bond with Brutus made him immune to danger. He thought knowing the predator was enough to escape its nature. But saltwater crocodiles don't weigh sentiment, they weigh survival. As one survivor of a previous attack grimly put it, "They move faster than your instincts." Sam Mitchell didn't die because he was careless. He died because he believed he wasn't. In that moment, nature didn't lash out, it followed through. The illusion of trust shattered in seconds. The river, indifferent as ever, closed over the surface like nothing had happened at all. As the shock settled and the headlines faded, a deeper and far more troubling picture began to surface. The investigation into Sam Mitchell's death uncovered a series of missed chances moments when the trajectory of this tragedy could have been altered. In 2022 alone, Sam had been formally warned twice by Northern Territory wildlife officials for violating safe distance regulations near known crocodile habitats. One of those reports included photographic evidence of Sam tossing fish remains into the water while Brutus lingered just meters away. Despite the warnings, no further action was taken. A confidential internal memo, later leaked to a local newspaper, revealed that park authorities had seriously considered issuing a temporary fishing ban at Cahill's Crossing due to escalating crocodile activity. The memo read, "Growing habituation among large males, urgent reassessment required." But the ban was never implemented. "We were scared someone would become a headline," admitted one anonymous ranger. But no one wanted to be the one who shut the crossing down. Meanwhile, Brutus himself had been part of a long-term wildlife tracking program. Tagging data showed his movement patterns had become increasingly bold, spending more time near the crossing, approaching boats, and lingering closer to shore. Experts now believe this shift signaled a maturing crocodile asserting dominance over a territory he now claimed as his own. Sam had unknowingly stepped into a zone no longer neutral. He wasn't being observed, he was being cataloged. Social media posts further complicated the narrative. Joel, still shaken, admitted during a police interview that Sam had become increasingly daring in the months leading up to the attack. He wanted the next big clip, Joel said. One time, he even reached out to try and touch Brutus's snout, said he wanted to break the internet. That clip was never posted, but other videos, showing Sam tossing bait into the river or squatting near the water's edge, flooded his page. Beneath one such post, a chilling comment dated just 2 weeks before the attack read, "One day, he's gonna lose a leg doing that." It wasn't said with hate, it was a fan expressing real concern. Yet none of it changed Sam's behavior. The charge for feeding wildlife, once filed by a ranger who caught him on drone footage, had been quietly dropped. The community around him, both online and off, had begun to normalize the risk. Brutus, now estimated to be nearly 6 meters long, was at the peak of his territorial aggression. Wildlife biologists noted that crocodiles of that size don't just guard space, they eliminate threats to it. Sam was no longer seen as a familiar figure in Brutus's world. He had become a rival. The crossing wasn't just a fishing spot anymore, it was a kingdom. And in that kingdom, Brutus ruled alone. In the aftermath of Sam Mitchell's death, experts were called in not just to explain what happened, but why it was inevitable. Wildlife biologists and herpetologists across Australia agreed on one point immediately. This was not a random act of aggression, it was the logical end of a pattern. Saltwater crocodiles are the ultimate ambush predators. Evolution has sculpted them to lie in absolute stillness for hours, submerged just beneath the surface, eyes and nostrils barely visible. When they strike, it's with a burst of power and precision unmatched in the animal kingdom. But what makes them truly lethal, scientists say, isn't just their physical capabilities, it's their ability to learn. If a human shows up in the same place, at the same time, doing the same thing over and over, that's not a coincidence to a crocodile, said Dr. Marcus Weller, a leading reptile behaviorist. That's hunting prep, and they don't make mistakes, they make plans. Over months of repeated exposure, Brutus likely began to associate Sam with two things: food and intrusion. He wasn't just another animal crossing his path, he was a pattern, a routine, a soft, predictable breach of territory. And when Brutus finally acted, he followed the blueprint crocodiles have used for millions of years. The strike itself would have been almost imperceptible to a human observer. One moment, still water. The next, a sudden blur of scales, teeth, and brute force. With jaws capable of exerting over 30 pounds per square inch, enough to snap bone like dry twigs, Brutus would have clamped down before Sam even had time to react. The bite is only the beginning. What follows is the infamous death roll, a violent spinning motion designed to disorient, disable, and drown. Once a crocodile initiates the roll, there is no escape. Even trained handlers, in controlled environments, stand no chance once caught in its grip. "That's what people misunderstand," said Dr. Weller. "The moment it begins, it's already over." Sam's case also highlighted a dangerous behavioral trend known as habituation. When wild animals are repeatedly exposed to humans without negative consequences, they lose their natural fear. And once that boundary is broken, it's not a matter of if, but when they act according to instinct. Brutus, having been fed and approached by Sam for months, no longer viewed him as something to avoid. Other fatal attacks share eerily similar dynamics. In 2015, a crocodile killed a wildlife tour operator in Queensland who believed the animal recognized him. In 2009, a conservationist in Borneo was taken by a croc he had raised from a hatchling. In each case, the human believed in a bond. In each case, nature corrected that belief. The wild doesn't respond to affection. It doesn't care about routine, personality, or social media presence. Familiarity does not equal trust. The ultimate lesson? Nature is not your friend. It can tolerate you. It can even ignore you, until one day, it doesn't. 2 days after the attack, search teams found what remained of Sam Mitchell. His partially intact body was located nearly a kilometer downstream, lodged beneath the roots of a fallen tree. The current had carried him far from the crossing, but not far enough to erase what had happened. Identification was confirmed by the torn flannel shirt and a distinct tattoo on his shoulder, his name etched into a memory now too painful to speak aloud. Sam's funeral was held in quiet privacy, attended only by close family and friends. Joel Harper, still pale and shaken, served as a pallbearer. In hushed conversations outside the chapel, friends described Sam as kind, fearless, but reckless. They remembered his laughter, his generosity, and his refusal to back down from anything, including nature. Online, memorial posts flooded in, many filled with grief and admiration, but others carried sharper edges. "He died doing what he loved," read one. "He courted death and filmed it," read another. The debate was immediate and fierce. Wildlife experts, rangers, and ethicists weighed in across forums and podcasts. Was this preventable? Was this selfishness masked as bravery? Should influencers be held accountable when their choices model dangerous behavior? In response, the Northern Territory government acted swiftly. New, larger danger signs were erected at Cahill's Crossing, flanked by permanent metal barriers and visual warnings showing crocodile attack patterns. Ranger patrols were doubled. A now viral video, released by park authorities, featured a stern-faced ranger speaking directly to the camera. "Respect means distance. Admiration doesn't mean approach. And love won't save you," Joel later agreed to one interview. Sitting beside the still muddy riverbank, his voice cracked. "I told him to stop feeding that croc. I told him Brutus wasn't his friend. But he believed the croc liked him. And now he's gone." He blinked back tears. Behind him, the tinny boat that once carried them both sat unused, flecked with rust and covered in dry leaves, a silent monument to a fatal illusion. The crossing itself changed. Locals passed more quickly, eyes scanning the water. Tourists paused longer at the signs. Yet, Brutus remained. Still seen occasionally, still lurking near the same bend. He hadn't changed. He hadn't betrayed anything. Because predators don't betray, they act. This wasn't a tragedy. said Dr. Marla Jenkins in a televised segment. It was an inevitability. The moment he began believing in mutual respect with a prehistoric carnivore, the countdown started. Sam's death echoed louder than expected, not just as a loss, but as a cautionary symbol. The bond he thought he had forged died with him, exposed as fantasy. The river still flows, the crocodiles still hunt, and the line between awe and arrogance remains razor thin. In the end, it wasn't Brutus who crossed that line. It was Sam. Sam Mitchell died believing in a connection that never existed. To him, Brutus wasn't just a crocodile, he was a companion, a constant in an unpredictable world, a living symbol of man's ability to coexist with the wild through respect and routine. But to Brutus, Sam was never anything more than movement, heat, sound, familiar flesh near the shore. Where Sam saw trust, Brutus saw timing. The illusion of mutual respect, built over months of proximity and repeated encounters, was a projection, one-sided and unsustainable. The final lesson of Sam's story is brutal in its clarity. Instinct does not bend to affection. Nature doesn't negotiate. Crocodiles don't care how many times you've stood beside them, how gently you speak, or how many likes your videos earn. They don't betray trust because they don't operate within the concept of trust. Crocodiles don't betray trust, said one park official in a blunt interview following the attack. They don't make it. In the wake of Sam's death, lawmakers have proposed new wildlife filming regulations, including stricter distance laws and harsher penalties for feeding apex predators. Advocacy groups are pushing for digital platforms to flag and suppress content that glamorizes unsafe animal interactions. And still, the trend grows: men and women venturing closer to danger in pursuit of content, clout, and clicks, mislabeling risk as courage. A reflection of modern adventurism, where thrill becomes currency and the algorithm rewards recklessness disguised as intimacy with the wild. The river at Cahill's Crossing has returned to stillness. The water is calm, the trees cast their quiet reflections, the signs stand taller now, their warnings bolder. But the river itself does not mourn. It does not mark Sam's absence. It simply moves forward, as it always has, indifferent and undisturbed. Nature didn't lash out. It didn't punish. It merely continued its pattern. In its silence lies the harshest truth. The wild does not care how deeply we feel about it. And when we step too close, expecting recognition or reciprocity, it responds in the only way it knows how, with instinct. So let this story stand not only as a tragedy, but as a mirror, a reminder that admiration must include caution, that wonder must be bound to wisdom, that no amount of affection can rewrite the rules of survival. Because in the wild, there are no bonds, only boundaries, and when those are crossed, the consequences are swift, final, and entirely natural. Admire the wild, but never step into it expecting love. On-screen text fades into the final shot of the river's slow current. What you mistake for a bond, it may just be the pause before the strike.